My favourite aspect of this costume is the rapier. She put her hand on the hilt and struck a pose, one knee bent before her. If the matrons get wind of your legs in those breeches, Otis said, you'll be thrown out of polite society, finally. Joan shrugged again, having spent the last 2 years on the edge of being ruined. Sometimes the scandal wasn't her fault, such as when young Lord Stuckley had kidnapped her from a ball, planning a forced wedding. She had knocked him senseless with the hilt of his own sword, an action that the Ton interpreted as unladylike. The fact that she had returned to the ball and danced the night away was ruled an even greater affront to refined sensibilities. Her father had been livid at Stuckley, not Joan, but he wasn't happy when Joan was caught kissing a marquis in an arbour and refused the offer to become a marchioness. A few weeks after that, she kissed the Honourable Anthony Froude on a balcony in full sight of the ballroom. That scandal burned even hotter after she informed Lady Froude that her son's kisses were only intoxicating because he had imbibed a bottle of brandy. Father gave me permission to wear breeches for this play. He knows I'm tired of performing damsels in distress, Joan said now. Though I might add that I'm forbidden to leave the grounds in male attire. The Duke didn't extend the command to you in a gown, though. I assume we're heading straight for the castle gate, Otis said, the veteran of many of Joan's schemes. Obviously we need to test our costumes in public, Joan replied, putting on her wig, a small one that fit closely to her braided hair, with only 2 neat rolls over each ear and a short queue at the back. Your man did a good job with your eyebrows, but you need powder and some hairpins to hold your wig. Otis moved to sit down on the stool before her dressing table, but misjudged, he and his enormous bustle ending up on the floor. He sprawled in a jumble of skirts, looking at her. Why would anyone in their right mind wear a bustle? Up you go, Joan said, holding out her hand and ignoring a question for which he had no answer. She hauled him upright, retrieved his wig, and pinned on his hat. I would rather practice my lines than go for a walk, Otis said, picking up Joan's powder puff and generously dusting his face. The only line I remember from Hamlet is the prince's daddy moaning, "Remember me." Something's rotten in the state of Denmark, Joan said cheerfully. Hamlet's father was killed by his uncle, who took the kingdom and married Hamlet's mother. Hamlet scolds his mother, breaks off relations with Ophelia, that's you, and takes a trip to sea with pirates. He finally gets around to revenge, and by the last act, everyone is dead. Including Ophelia, or rather me, Otis pointed out. Not my sort of play, I don't mind telling you. As I recall, she goes on and on about Hamlet not loving her. Memorization was never my forte. What's more, Hamlet would have to be blind to fall in love with me. He gestured toward the mirror. Joan had to admit that powder was doing nothing to hide Otis's angular jaw. The key to acting is imagination, she advised. Concentrate on a sad lady. Remember how Miss Tressel wept after her spaniel died? Imitate her facial expression. Joan couldn't do needlework, she couldn't play the pianoforte, and she was rubbish at watercolouring. Her only skill was acting. Unfortunately, ladies were only allowed to perform dainty, ladylike parts, and then only in the occasional private performance. She was sick of playing fair maidens waiting for a prince to save them. She wanted to play the prince who fought pirates. Thank goodness her father had finally given in to her entreaties to be allowed to play a prince, albeit with the proviso that one of their family or friends must play Hamlet's beloved. When the females in her family had unanimously declined to act Ophelia, even for one night, her best friend Otis had stepped forward. He tried out a pout that made him look as if he had dyspepsia. I assume you're choosing someone royal to imitate? Close enough, Joan confirmed. Viscount Greywick, future Duke of Eversley, was the most pompous, irritating man she'd ever met. He had courted 2 of her sisters, but thankfully, both Betsy and Viola had rejected.